You're nothing. Absolutely nothing without money. Amara's voice tore through the small apartment like a whip crack, her perfectly manicured finger jabbing toward Daniel's chest. Look at you. Sitting here day after day like a worthless fool while I work myself to the bone. Daniel stood frozen in the doorway of their modest two-bedroom flat in Lagos, watching his wife of 3 years transform into someone he barely recognized. Her designer bag, one of the last relics from their previous life, hung from her shoulder as she prepared to leave. Again. For the third night this week. Amara, it's past 10 p.m. Where are you going? His voice was calm, measured, but his eyes betrayed the pain beneath. She laughed, a cold, bitter sound that echoed off the bare walls. Where am I going? Anywhere but here. Anywhere away from this prison you've trapped me in. 6 months. It had been exactly 6 months since Daniel had told her about losing everything. 6 months since the luxury cars disappeared, since they moved from their penthouse in Ikoyi to this middle-class neighborhood in Yoba. 6 months since the test began. But lately, the signs had become impossible to ignore. The late nights. The new expensive perfume she somehow afforded. The way she flinched when he touched her, as if his hands carried disease. I know you're seeing someone else, Daniel said quietly. The words hung in the air like smoke. Amara's eyes flashed with something. Was it guilt? Fear? No. It was rage. So what if I am? She stepped closer, her voice dripping with venom. What are you going to do about it, Daniel? You can't even afford to buy me airtime. You want me to waste my youth waiting for a man who can't provide. Daniel's jaw tightened. I'm still your husband. Husband. Amara threw her head back and laughed again. A husband takes care of his wife. A husband makes sure she lacks nothing. You. She looked him up and down with disgust. You're just a burden I have to carry. She grabbed her keys from the small table near the door, but Daniel moved to block her path. We need to talk about this, Amara. Really talk. Not like this. Move. Her voice was ice. Amara, please. I said move. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Amara's eyes darted to the kitchen counter where the electric kettle sat, steam still rising from its spout. She just boiled water for 10 minutes before this confrontation began. Before Daniel could process her intention, she lunged for it. If you won't let me leave, then maybe this will teach you to stay out of my way. The scalding water arced through the air. Daniel threw up his hands instinctively, but not fast enough. The boiling liquid splashed across his face, neck, and shoulder. The pain was immediate and excruciating, a searing, burning agony that drove him to his knees. His scream filled the apartment. Amara stood frozen for exactly 3 seconds, the empty kettle still in her hand, watching her husband writhe on the floor. Then, without a word, she dropped the kettle, grabbed her bag, and walked out the door. The sound of her heels clicking down the hallway was the last thing Daniel heard before the pain overwhelmed everything else. Daniel didn't go to the hospital that night. Instead, he sat in front of the bathroom mirror, cold water running over his burns, and made a phone call. Father, he said quietly. The test is over. You were right about her. On the other end of the line, Chief Benjamin Okonkwo, one of the wealthiest men in West Africa, owner of the Okonkwo Group with interests in oil, real estate, and telecommunications, listened to his son's broken voice and felt his heart shatter. Come home, Daniel. Come home now. But Daniel looked at his reflection, at the angry red burns on his skin that would scar, at the man who'd spent a year pretending to be poor to discover the truth about his wife's character. Not yet, Daniel said. She doesn't know who I really am. She thinks she's one. But father, I need you to help me with something. Anything, my son. I need evidence. Everything. Where she goes, who she's with, what she spends. And I need our lawyers to prepare divorce papers. But not just any divorce. Chief Benjamin heard the steel enter his son's voice, the same tone he himself used in boardrooms when crushing competitors. I want her to pay for this. Every single thing she's done. And when I'm finished, I want the whole world to know exactly what kind of woman Amara really is. Hello guys. Welcome to Stories by Stoner. If you're new here, we share the most gripping African family drama stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done if your spouse did this to you? Let's dive in. The next morning, Amara didn't come home. Daniel sat in the small living room, his face and shoulder wrapped in bandages, and waited. Around noon, his phone buzzed with a text. Staying with my sister for a few days. Don't bother calling. He almost laughed. Her sister lived in a one-bedroom flat in Surulere. There was no way Amara would stay there, not when she'd complained endlessly about poor people's neighborhoods. Another message came through, this one from a private number. It contained a photo. Amara, dressed in an expensive new dress Daniel had never seen, entering a luxury hotel in Victoria Island with a man. The man's arm was around her waist. They were laughing. Daniel's phone rang immediately after. Mr. Okonkwo, this is Detective James from the firm your father hired. We have eyes on your wife 24/7 now. Should we continue monitoring? Yes, Daniel said softly. I want everything. Every meeting, every purchase, every word. And James. Find out who he is. The man she's with. I want to know everything about him too. Already done, sir. His name is Richard Mensah. Ghanaian businessman. Runs an import company. Married with 2 kids. Married. Of course he was. Daniel hung up and stared at the photo for a long moment. 3 years of marriage. 3 years of what he'd thought was love. And it had all been a lie built on money. But what Amara didn't know, what she couldn't possibly imagine, was that the poor, jobless husband she just assaulted and abandoned was worth over 50 billion naira. His family's empire sprawled across 3 countries. The modest apartment. A property they owned outright. The job loss. A complete fabrication. Everything had been a test designed by his parents to answer one simple question. Did she love Daniel, or did she love what Daniel could give her? Now he had his answer, burned into his skin. And soon, Amara would have hers. What do you think Daniel should do next? Should he reveal the truth or continue gathering evidence? Drop your comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. 3 days passed before Amara finally returned to the apartment. Daniel was sitting in the dim living room when he heard her key turn in the lock. It was 2 a.m. She stumbled inside, and even in the darkness, he could smell the expensive perfume mixed with alcohol and cigarette smoke. She jumped when she saw him sitting there, his bandaged face barely visible in the shadows. Jesus. You scared me. She clutched her chest, then her surprise quickly morphed into irritation. Why are you sitting in the dark like some kind of ghost? Where have you been, Amara? Daniel's voice was eerily calm. She rolled her eyes and kicked off her heels. New ones, he noticed. Red bottoms. Louboutins. Those cost at least 800,000 naira. Where did she get that kind of money? I told you. I was at my sister's place. For 3 days. Yes, for 3 days. God, Daniel, why are you interrogating me? I needed space after what happened. She had the audacity to sound like the victim. Daniel stood slowly, and she took a step back. Good. She should be afraid. After what happened? His voice rose slightly. You mean after you poured boiling water on my face and left me here bleeding? Amara's jaw tightened. You grabbed me first. You wouldn't let me leave. I stood in front of the door. I never touched you. Well, you were being aggressive. She tossed a new bag on the couch, another expensive piece he didn't recognize. And honestly, Daniel, if you had just moved out of my way, none of that would have happened. You brought it on yourself. The words hit him like physical blows. No remorse. No apology. Just blame. I'm your husband, Amara. I deserved at least a conversation before you walked out to meet your lover. Her face went pale for a split second before the mask of anger returned. Lover? What are you talking about? You're being paranoid now. Daniel pulled out his phone and tapped the screen. The photo Detective James had sent appeared, crystal clear. Amara and Richard, entering the hotel, his arm possessively around her waist. He turned the phone toward her. The color drained completely from Amara's face. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Then something shifted in her expression. The fear transformed into something uglier, defiance. So you're spying on me now? Having me followed like some kind of criminal? She snatched the phone from his hand and threw it across the room. It hit the wall with a crack. How did you even afford to hire someone? Oh wait, let me guess. You borrowed money from your parents again? The same parents you claimed cut you off. Daniel felt something cold settle in his chest. She wasn't even going to deny it. Who is he, Amara? She laughed. That same cruel laugh from 3 nights ago. He's a real man. Someone who knows how to take care of a woman. Someone who doesn't sit at home all day feeling sorry for himself. He's married. So am I. But at least he can afford to take me somewhere nice. Amara's voice was rising to a shout now. Do you know what it's like? Do you know how embarrassing it is to tell my friends that my husband lost everything? That we had to move to this slum? Yoba is not a slum, Amara. Regular people live here. Good people. Regular people are poor people, Daniel. And I didn't marry you to be poor. She was screaming now, all pretense gone. I married you because you had money. Because you took me to nice places and bought me nice things. That was the deal. The deal. Daniel's voice was dangerously quiet. Marriage is not a business transaction. Everything is a business transaction. Amara grabbed her bag again. And right now, you have nothing to offer. So yes, I found someone who does. Someone who appreciates me. Someone who's using you, Daniel interrupted. He's married, Amara. He has a wife and children. You think he's going to leave them for you? Her hand flew before he could react, slapping him hard across his bandaged cheek. The pain from his burns exploded fresh and white-hot. Daniel staggered back, his hand going to his face. Don't you dare judge me. Amara was breathing hard, her eyes wild. You have no right. You're the one who ruined everything. We had a good life, and you destroyed it with your failure. Daniel straightened slowly, removing his hand from his face. When he spoke, his voice was like ice. Get out. What? I said get out. Pack your things and get out of my house. Amara stared at him, then burst out laughing. Your house? Daniel, you can't even afford rent. This place probably belongs to your parents, and you're just too proud to admit it. She had no idea how right she was. Fine, she continued, grabbing her phone. I'll leave. Richard's been asking me to move in with him anyway. At least I'll live like a queen again instead of this poverty you've trapped me in. He's married, Amara. He has a family. He's getting a divorce, she shot back. He told me. His wife doesn't understand him. She's boring and traditional. Not like me. Daniel almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Because he knew exactly what Detective James had discovered about Richard Mensah. The man had no intention of divorcing his wife. In fact, he'd told 3 other women the exact same lie. Richard was a serial cheater who targeted married women, showered them with temporary luxury, and disappeared when things got complicated. But Daniel said nothing. Let her learn the hard way. I'll be back tomorrow for my things, Amara said, heading for the door. And Daniel, don't try to contact me. Don't beg. Don't cry. It's over. You're not the man I married anymore. You're right, Daniel said softly. I'm not. She paused at the door, perhaps expecting him to break down, to plead with her to stay. When he remained silent, just staring at her with those dark, unreadable eyes, she huffed and slammed the door behind her. The moment she was gone, Daniel's phone rang. His father. "I heard everything," Chief Benjamin said. The apartment was bugged with audio equipment. Daniel had authorized it the night of the assault. "My son, I'm so sorry. No man should endure this." "It's fine, father. Actually, it's better than fine. Now I have her admission on tape. Her stating that she married me for money, her confirming the affair, her physically assaulting me again." Daniel moved to the window and watched Amara get into a waiting Mercedes. Richard's car. "How's the legal team coming along?" "They're ready. We can file tomorrow if you want. Divorce on grounds of adultery and domestic violence. With the evidence we have, she won't get a single kobo in the settlement." "No," Daniel said slowly. "Not yet. I want more. I want the world to see who she really is. And father, I think it's time to activate Phase 2. Chief Benjamin was quiet for a moment. "Are you sure? Once we do this, there's no going back." Daniel touched his bandaged face, felt the sting of both burns and betrayal. "I'm sure. Contact her workplace. I want to know everything about her financial situation. Her debts, her spending, everything. And father, reach out to Richard Mensa's wife. I think she deserves to know what kind of man she's married to." Consider it done. After hanging up, Daniel sat in the darkness and allowed himself one moment of grief. 3 years. 3 years of loving someone who had never loved him back. 3 years of building a life with someone who only wanted his money. But grief was a luxury he couldn't afford right now. He had work to do. The next morning, Daniel was awoken by pounding on his door. He checked his watch. 7 a.m. When he opened it, Amara stood there, but this time she wasn't alone. Her mother, Mrs. Helen, was with her, looking furious. "Daniel Okonkwo, what is this I'm hearing?" Mrs. Helen pushed past him into the apartment, her daughter following. "Amara says you've been abusing her. That you've been violent and controlling." Daniel's eyebrows rose slowly. "I've been abusing her? Don't play innocent." Mrs. Helen jabbed a finger at him. "Look at what you've become. A useless man who can't provide for his wife. My daughter deserves better than this poverty." "Mummy, please," Amara said, but there was a gleam of satisfaction in her eyes. "Let's just get my things and go." Daniel leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching this performance with detached interest. "Mrs. Helen, did Amara tell you what happened 3 nights ago?" "She told me everything. How you tried to stop her from leaving, how you became aggressive." "Did she tell you she poured boiling water on my face?" Daniel slowly unwrapped the bandage, revealing the angry red burns beneath. Both women gasped. "Did she tell you she did this, then left me here without medical care? Did she tell you about her married boyfriend?" Mrs. Helen's face went pale. She turned slowly to her daughter. "Amara, what is he talking about? He's lying. He's trying to make me look bad because he can't handle that I've outgrown him." Amara's voice was rising. "Mummy, don't listen to him. He's broke and desperate, Anne." Daniel pulled out his phone, a new one, since she'd broken the other, and played the audio from the previous night. His father had sent him a copy. Amara's voice filled the room, clear as day. "I married you because you had money. Because you took me to nice places and bought me nice things. That was the deal." Mrs. Helen's hand flew to her mouth. The recording continued. "At least I'll live like a queen again instead of this poverty you've trapped me in. Richard's been asking me to move in with him anyway." Silence. Mrs. Helen turned to her daughter, and for the first time, Daniel saw genuine shame in Amara's eyes. But it lasted only a second before the defiance returned. "So what?" Amara lifted her chin. "So what if I found someone better? You think I should stay with a broke man just because we signed some papers? Love doesn't pay bills, Daniel. Get your things, Mrs. Helen said quietly. Both of you. We're leaving. Mummy. Now, Amara. It took them 20 minutes to pack. Amara grabbed her clothes, her shoes, her jewelry, all purchased during their wealthy days, back when Daniel was still successful in her eyes. As they were leaving, Mrs. Helen paused at the door. Daniel, I'm sorry. I raised her better than this. I thought I did anyway. Then they were gone. Daniel stood in the empty apartment, surrounded by the scattered remnants of his broken marriage, and smiled. Let Amara enjoy her victory. Let her think she'd won. Let her move in with Richard, live the luxury lifestyle she craved. Because in exactly 2 weeks, the Okonkwo Group was holding its annual gala, the biggest business and social event in Lagos. Every major player would be there. Politicians, business moguls, celebrities. The media would be everywhere. And Daniel Okonkwo, secret heir to a 50 billion naira empire, would be publicly announced as the new CEO. He wondered what Amara's face would look like when she saw him on every news channel, every newspaper, every social media platform. When she realized the poor, jobless husband she'd abandoned was actually one of the richest men in Nigeria. The thought made him smile wider. Will Amara discover the truth before it's too late? What will happen when she realizes her mistake? Drop your predictions in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Richard Mensa's penthouse apartment in Victoria Island was everything Amara had dreamed of during those long, miserable months in Yoba. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Lagos Lagoon. Marble floors. A kitchen with appliances that cost more than most people's cars. A walk-in closet bigger than the entire apartment she'd shared with Daniel. This was the life she deserved. Baby, you look stunning in that dress, Richard said, coming up behind her as she admired herself in the massive bedroom mirror. He wrapped his arms around her waist, kissing her neck. Red is definitely your color. Amara smiled, running her hands over the silk fabric. Another gift from Richard. This one cost 300,000 naira. In the past 2 weeks since moving in with him, he'd bought her 6 new dresses, 3 pairs of shoes, and a diamond bracelet that sparkled on her wrist. You spoil me, she purred, turning in his arms. You deserve to be spoiled. Not like that useless husband of yours. Richard's lip curled with contempt. What kind of man lets himself lose everything? Pathetic. Amara's smile faltered slightly. Despite everything, something about those words felt wrong. But she pushed the feeling away. Daniel had failed her. Richard was her future now. Speaking of which, Richard continued, releasing her and walking to his dresser. Have you filed for divorce yet? I'm working on it, Amara lied. The truth was she hadn't even consulted a lawyer. Part of her kept waiting for Daniel to call, to beg, to fight for their marriage. But her phone had been silent for 2 weeks. These things take time. Well, speed it up. Richard's voice had an edge to it now. I don't like complications. And you living here while you're still legally married to someone else? That's a complication. I thought you said your divorce was almost final. Amara asked carefully. Richard's jaw tightened. It is. My lawyer is handling it. But my situation is different. There are assets involved, custody issues. Yours should be simple. The man has nothing. Just get it done, Amara. Before she could respond, Richard's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression changed. I have to take this. Business call. He stepped out onto the balcony, sliding the glass door shut behind him. But Amara could still see him through the window, and something about his body language made her uneasy. He was tense, almost angry, and when he turned slightly, she could read his lips forming a woman's name. Jennifer. His wife. Amara's stomach twisted. He'd promised he was leaving her. He'd promised that after the divorce, they'd get married properly, that Amara would be his wife in every way that mattered. But watching him now, seeing the way his face softened as he spoke, seeing him laugh at something Jennifer said. Doubt crept in like cold water. When Richard came back inside, his smile was back in place. Sorry about that. Where were we? Who was that? Amara tried to keep her voice light. Just a client. Nothing important. He checked his watch. Listen, I have a dinner meeting tonight. Business associates from Ghana. Boring stuff. Why don't you stay in, order something nice, relax? I could come with you, Amara suggested. I'd love to meet your business partners. No. The word came out too sharp, too fast. Richard softened it with a smile. I mean, it's going to be all business talk. You'd be bored to death. Plus, I need you looking fresh and beautiful for the gala tomorrow night. Gala. The Okonkwo Group Annual Gala. Biggest event of the year. Everyone who's anyone will be there. Richard's eyes gleamed. I finally got us tickets. This is huge for my business, baby. And having you on my arm? We're going to turn heads. Amara's heart raced with excitement. The Okonkwo Group Gala was legendary, a showcase of wealth and power. She'd always dreamed of attending but never had the connections. What should I wear? That new gold dress I bought you. The one that cost 800,000. And the diamond bracelet. He kissed her forehead. Trust me, after tomorrow night, everyone is going to know who Amara is. He had no idea how right he was. Meanwhile, across the city in the Okonkwo family mansion in Ikoyi, Daniel stood in his father's study as three lawyers spread documents across the massive mahogany desk. Everything is ready, Mr. Okonkwo, the lead lawyer, Mrs. Patience, said. She was one of the most formidable divorce attorneys in Nigeria. We have documented evidence of adultery, domestic violence, and abandonment. With the recordings, the photographs, and the testimony from your building security, Mrs. Amara Okonkwo won't have a legal leg to stand on. What about the prenuptial agreement? Chief Benjamin asked from his position by the window. Ironically, there isn't one, Mrs. Patience replied. However, given that all assets were acquired before the marriage or through the Okonkwo family trust, and given Mrs. Amara's documented infidelity and abuse, we can ensure she receives nothing. In fact, we're countersuing for damages, medical costs for the burns, emotional distress, and destruction of property. Daniel touched his face absently. The burns were healing, but they would scar. A permanent reminder of who Amara truly was. And Richard Mensah? He asked quietly. Mrs. Patience's smile was sharp. Mr. Mensah is about to have a very bad week. His wife, Jennifer, has been contacted by our team. She had no idea about the affair, or the 3 other affairs he's been conducting simultaneously. She's filing for divorce and taking him for everything he's worth. His business is also under investigation for tax fraud, which we may have tipped the authorities about. We didn't plant evidence, Chief Benjamin clarified quickly. The fraud was real. We simply made sure the right people knew about it. Daniel nodded slowly. He felt no guilt about destroying Richard Mensah. The man was a predator who'd ruined multiple families. He deserved what was coming. Tomorrow night at the gala, Daniel said, I want everything to be perfect. The announcement of my position as CEO, the media coverage, everything. I want it broadcasted live on every major platform. It will be, his father assured him. Son, are you sure about this? Once your identity is revealed, there's no going back to a normal life. Everyone will know you're the Okonkwo heir. Daniel thought about the past year. The test. The humiliation. The violence. The betrayal. I'm sure. And father. I want Amara to be there. I want her to see everything. She will be, Mrs. Patience said, checking her tablet. According to our surveillance, Richard Mensah purchased 2 tickets to the gala. They'll be in attendance. Perfect. That evening, Amara sat alone in Richard's penthouse, picking at the expensive sushi he'd had delivered. Through the window, Legos sparkled like scattered diamonds, but she felt strangely hollow. Her phone buzzed. Her mother. "Amara, we need to talk," Mrs. Helen said without preamble. "I've been thinking about everything that happened. About Daniel." "Mummy, please. Not now. That recording, Amara. The things you said to him. The way you hit him after what you'd already done with the hot water." Her mother's voice cracked. "I didn't raise you to be cruel." "He was weak," Amara snapped. "He lost everything we had. What was I supposed to do? Stand by your husband? For better or worse, that's what marriage means." Mrs. Helen was crying now. "Your father and I went through hard times. There were months we couldn't afford food. But I never left him. I never cheated. And you know what? We survived. We built something together. This is different." "How? How is it different, Amara?" "Because she'd never loved Daniel. Not really. She'd loved the lifestyle, the status, the money. But she couldn't say that to her mother. "I have to go, Mummy." "Amara, wait." She hung up. The apartment suddenly felt too big, too quiet. Amara walked to the window and stared out at the city. Somewhere out there, Daniel was probably sitting in that tiny apartment, alone and miserable. Part of her, a very small part, felt guilty. But then she looked at the diamond bracelet on her wrist, at the designer dress in the closet, at the luxury surrounding her. She'd made the right choice. Tomorrow night at the gala, she'd step into the world she was always meant to inhabit. The world of wealth and power and influence. And Daniel. Daniel would fade into a memory of a mistake she'd almost made, staying with a poor man out of misplaced loyalty. She smiled at her reflection in the window. Tomorrow night, her new life truly began. What Amara didn't know was that across the city, Daniel was also preparing for tomorrow night. But while she was planning to step into her new life, he was planning to destroy it. His phone buzzed with a message from Detective James. It contained a photo taken just an hour ago. Richard Mensa, having dinner with a young woman who definitely wasn't Amara. His hand was on her thigh under the table. They were laughing intimately. Daniel forwarded the photo to his private folder. He now had over 200 pieces of evidence documenting Richard's infidelities, his fraud, his lies. Tomorrow, Amara would walk into that gala on the arm of a man who was using her. She'd be dressed in clothes he bought with embezzled money, wearing jewelry purchased with funds from his failing business. And then Daniel would step onto that stage. The cameras would flash. The announcement would be made. And Amara would realize that she'd traded a billionaire for a fraud. The thought made him smile. Justice was coming. And it was wearing a tailored suit. The morning of the gala, Amara woke up alone. She reached across the bed, but Richard's side was cold. Empty. A note sat on his pillow, written in his hurried scrawl. Had to handle some business. Be back by 6 p.m. to get ready. Wear the gold dress. Ah. Amara crumpled the note, irritation prickling under her skin. This was the third morning this week she'd woken up alone. Richard's business meetings were becoming more frequent, more mysterious. But tonight would change everything. Tonight, she'd walk into that gala on his arm, and everyone would see that she'd upgraded. That she'd left her failure of a husband behind and found a real man. She spent the day at the spa, Richard's treat, getting her hair done in long flowing waves, her nails painted gold to match the dress, her skin glowing from the facial treatment. By the time she returned to the penthouse at 5 p.m., she looked like a different woman. The woman she was always meant to be. Richard still wasn't home. Amara tried calling. Voicemail. She texted, "Where are you? The gala starts at 8. No response. By 6:30 p.m., anxiety began replacing irritation. She called again. Nothing. At 7 p.m., just as panic was truly setting in, Richard burst through the door. His suit was wrinkled, his tie loose. He looked stressed. "Richard, where have you been? We need to leave in 30 minutes. I know. He moved past her to the bedroom, already stripping off his jacket. Just had some complications with the business. Nothing to worry about. What kind of complications? Nothing for you to worry your pretty head about. His tone was dismissive as he disappeared into the bathroom. Just get dressed. We're still going. Amara bit back her frustration and slipped into the gold dress. It hugged every curve, the fabric shimmering like liquid metal. The diamond bracelet sparkled at her wrist. She looked stunning. When Richard emerged from the bathroom 20 minutes later in a fresh tuxedo, his eyes widened. Wow. You look incredible. So do you. She kissed his cheek, careful not to smudge her lipstick. Ready to make an entrance? Something flickered across Richard's face. Anxiety, maybe? But it was gone in a flash. Let's go knock them dead. The Eco Hotel and Suites was transformed into a glittering palace. Red carpets, towering floral arrangements, crystal chandeliers that cast rainbow light across the marble floors. Photographers lined the entrance, cameras flashing as Lagos's elite arrived in their finest. Amara's breath caught in her throat. This was it. This was the world she belonged in. Stay close, Richard murmured as they approached the entrance. His hand on her back felt tighter than usual, almost possessive. And if anyone asks, we've been together for 6 months, okay? Before your separation. Why would that matter? Just trust me. It's better that way. Before Amara could question him further, they were swept into the grand ballroom. It was breathtaking. At least 500 guests mingled beneath soaring ceilings, champagne flowing freely, a live orchestra playing in the corner. Giant screens flanked the stage at the far end, currently displaying the Okonkwo Group logo. Mr. Mensah. A portly man in an expensive suit approached, hand extended. Good to see you. And who is this lovely lady? This is Amara, Richard said smoothly. Amara, this is Mr. George, one of my business associates. They made small talk, but Amara noticed how Mr. George's smile never reached his eyes. How he kept glancing at Richard with something that looked like pity. As the evening progressed, Amara noticed similar reactions from others. Polite smiles that didn't quite connect. Whispered conversations that stopped when they approached. Once, she could have sworn she heard someone say Richard's name followed by the word, finished. Richard, is everything okay? She asked during a lull. People are acting strange. You're imagining things. But his jaw was tight, his eyes scanning the room like a trapped animal looking for an exit. Let's get some champagne. At 8:30 p.m., the lights dimmed. A hush fell over the crowd as everyone turned toward the stage. A distinguished older man in an immaculate tuxedo walked to the podium. Chief Benjamin Okonkwo, founder and chairman of the Okonkwo Group. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. His voice boomed through the speakers. Thank you all for joining us for our annual gala. Tonight is a very special night for the Okonkwo family and for our company. Amara sipped her champagne, only half listening. These corporate speeches were always boring. As many of you know, Chief Benjamin continued, I have been running this company for 35 years. It has been the honor of my life. But the time has come to pass the torch to the next generation. Murmurs of interest rippled through the crowd. My son has been training for this role his entire life. He's brilliant, dedicated, and has a heart for both business and people. Tonight, I am proud to announce that he will be taking over as Chief Executive Officer of the Okonkwo Group. Applause filled the ballroom. Cameras flashed. The screens flickered to life, ready to display the new CEO's image. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming my son and your new CEO, Daniel Okonkwo. The world stopped. Amara's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Because walking onto that stage, illuminated by spotlights, looking powerful and confident in a midnight blue tuxedo that probably cost more than Richard's car, was her husband. Her poor, jobless, pathetic husband, Daniel Okonkwo. The screens burst to life with images. Daniel shaking hands with the president. Daniel at international business conferences. Daniel's face on the cover of Forbes Africa with the headline, "The Hidden Heir, Inside the Okonkwo Empire's 50 billion naira Success." 50 billion. 50 billion naira. Amara's knees buckled. Richard caught her, but he was staring at the stage with equal shock. "You know him," Richard hissed in her ear. Amara couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what she was seeing. Daniel stood at the podium, the picture of success and power. The burns on his face had healed into faint scars that somehow made him look more distinguished, more dangerous. His eyes swept the crowd, and for one horrible moment, they locked with hers. He smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator who'd cornered its prey. "Thank you, Father," Daniel said, his voice smooth and confident. "And thank you all for being here tonight. I'm honored to lead this company into its next chapter. The Okonkwo Group has always valued integrity, loyalty, and family. These are the principles I will continue to uphold." Each word felt like a nail in Amara's coffin. Integrity, loyalty, family. Everything she'd betrayed. "Some of you may not know me," Daniel continued, "because I've preferred to work behind the scenes. In fact, for the past year, I've been conducting a personal project, learning about human nature, about what people truly value when everything else is stripped away." Oh God, no. It's amazing what you discover about people when they think you have nothing. His eyes found hers again. You learn who really loves you, and who only loves what you can give them. Around the ballroom, people began noticing where Daniel was looking. Heads turned. Whispers started. Amara felt hundreds of eyes land on her like physical weight. "But enough about philosophy," Daniel said, his smile widening. "Tonight is about celebration. Please, everyone, enjoy the evening. Eat, drink, and remember, the Okonkwo Group always honors its commitments. We never forget. And we always settle our debts." The applause was thunderous. Music resumed. But Amara couldn't move, couldn't think. "Amara," Richard's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. "That's your husband? Daniel Okonkwo is your husband." I didn't know," she whispered. "I swear I didn't know." "You didn't know?" Richard's laugh was bitter. "You didn't know you were married to one of the richest men in Nigeria? How is that even possible?" "He told me he lost everything. He said the business failed, that we had nothing." "And you believed him? You didn't question it? Didn't think to verify?" Richard ran his hands through his hair. Oh God, this is bad. This is very bad." "What do you mean? Don't you understand? Daniel Okonkwo just publicly humiliated you in front of everyone who matters in this city. And you're here with me, which means..." He stopped, his face going pale. "Which means everyone now knows about us. About the affair." Before Amara could respond, a security guard approached. "Mr. Mensah, Mrs. Okonkwo, Mr. Daniel Okonkwo would like to speak with you both. In private." Amara's blood turned to ice. "We're leaving," Richard said quickly, grabbing her arm. "I'm afraid that's not possible, sir," the security guard said politely. But two more guards had materialized behind him. Mr. Okonkwo was very insistent. "This way, please." They were trapped. As they were escorted through the crowd, Amara felt every eye on her. Heard the whispers that followed like a wake. "That's his wife. She's with another man. I heard she left him when she thought he was poor." Can you imagine? She had no idea. The walk to the private room felt like a death march. With every step, Amara's designer heels clicking on the marble floor, she felt her new life crumbling around her. The security guard opened a door to a private conference room. Inside, Daniel stood by the window, hands in his pockets, looking out at the Lagos skyline. He didn't turn when they entered. "Hello, Amara," he said quietly. Hello, Richard. Thank you for coming. Please, sit down. We have a lot to discuss. The door closed behind them with a sound like a coffin lid slamming shut. The truth is finally out. What do you think Daniel will do now? How will Amara react? Drop your comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. The silence in the conference room was suffocating. Amara couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't tear her eyes away from her husband's back as he stared out the window. Daniel. Her Daniel. Except he wasn't hers anymore, was he? And maybe he never had been. Not the real him, anyway. Sit down, Daniel repeated, his voice still calm, still quiet. But there was steel underneath. A command, not a request. Richard remained standing. Look, Mr. Okonkwo, I don't know what you think is going on here, but... Daniel turned slowly. The look in his eyes made Richard's words die in his throat. You don't know what I think is going on? Daniel's smile was cold. Let me clarify, then. You've been sleeping with my wife for the past 3 months. You told her you were getting a divorce when you have no intention of leaving your family. You've spent approximately 4.2 million naira on her money embezzled from your company's accounts, which is currently under investigation by the EFCC. Richard's face went white as a sheet. You've also been conducting affairs with 3 other married women simultaneously. Should I continue? Or would you like to sit down now? Richard sat. Daniel's eyes moved to Amara. She felt pinned under that gaze, like a butterfly on a collector's board. And you, Amara, my beloved wife. His voice dripped with sarcasm. Did you enjoy the gala? Was it everything you dreamed of? Daniel, her voice cracked. I didn't know. I swear, I had no idea you were a billionaire. Daniel finished. The heir to one of the largest conglomerates in West Africa? Yes, I know you didn't know. That was the point. He moved to the conference table, placing a manila folder on the polished surface. For 3 years, we were married. 3 years, Amara. And I loved you. I actually loved you. Pain flashed across his face, quickly masked. When my parents suggested the test, when they said we should see what kind of woman you really were, I defended you. I told them you were different. That you'd stand by me through anything. Daniel, please. I was wrong. The words cut like glass. 6 months. It took 6 months of you thinking I was poor before you found someone else. Before you started coming home late, smelling like another man's cologne. Before you poured boiling water on my face and walked out. Amara's hand flew to her mouth. Tears streamed down her cheeks, ruining her expensive makeup. Daniel opened the folder. Inside were photographs. Dozens of them. Amara and Richard entering hotels. Kissing in his car. Shopping together. Having intimate dinners. I have more, Daniel said quietly. Video recordings. Audio of you admitting you married me for money. Documentation of the assault. Text messages between you and Richard planning your future together. He looked up at her. Did you know he sent similar messages to 3 other women? Promising them the same future. Amara's head whipped toward Richard. What? Richard wouldn't meet her eyes. Oh, you didn't tell her? Daniel's voice was almost amused. Richard here is quite the entrepreneur. He targets married women whose husbands are going through financial difficulties. Offers them an escape. Showers them with gifts purchased on credit or with embezzled funds. Then, when things get complicated, he disappears. Richard. Amara's voice was barely a whisper. She's lying, Richard said quickly, desperately. That woman from the investigation. She's a vindictive ex. She made it all up. Women, Daniel corrected. 3 women. And they're not lying. I've met with all of them. Compared notes. Your pattern is very consistent, Mr. Mensah. Richard stood abruptly. I don't have to listen to this. You have no proof of anything. Sit down. Daniel's voice cracked like a whip. Something in his tone, the absolute authority, the barely leashed fury, made Richard sink back into his chair. I have every proof I need, Daniel continued. And by Monday morning, so will the authorities. The EFCC, the police, your wife's divorce lawyers. Speaking of your wife, Jennifer sent you a message. Daniel pulled out his phone and read, "Tell Richard he can keep his mistresses and his debts. I'm taking the house, the cars, custody of the children, and half his remaining assets. My lawyer will be in touch." Richard's face crumpled. No. No, she can't. Jennifer, she wouldn't. She would. And she did. She's filing on Monday. Daniel pocketed his phone. As for your business, the investigation will reveal about 15 million naira in tax fraud and embezzlement. You're looking at significant jail time, Mr. Mensah. You did this, Richard breathed, standing again. You sabotaged me. You ruined my life. No. Daniel's voice was ice. You ruined your own life. I simply made sure the truth came to light. There's a difference. Richard lunged across the table, but Daniel was faster. He sidestepped smoothly, and security guards burst through the door, grabbing Richard by the arms. Get your hands off me. Richard struggled. Do you know who I am? A fraud and a liar, Daniel said calmly. Gentlemen, please escort Mr. Mensah out. And make sure the media gets some nice photographs of him leaving. I'm sure they'll have questions. As Richard was dragged from the room, still shouting threats and curses, Amara and Daniel were left alone. The silence was deafening. Daniel, Amara whispered, her voice broken. Daniel, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. If I had known. If you'd known I was rich, you would have stayed? Daniel's laugh was bitter. Yes, Amara. I know. That's exactly the problem. No. That's not what I meant. She stood, moving toward him. I mean, I would have tried harder. I would have been more patient. I would have. You would have pretended better, Daniel finished. You would have hidden your true nature a little longer. But eventually, the mask would have slipped. Because you don't love me, Amara. You never did. You loved my money. That's not fair. Isn't it? Daniel's composure finally cracked. You poured boiling water on my face. You hit me. You moved in with another man. You told me to my face that you married me for money, that our marriage was a transaction. How is any of this unfair? Amara sobbed, collapsing back into her chair. I was angry. I was scared. We went from having everything to having nothing, and I didn't know how to handle it. I made mistakes. Mistakes. Daniel's voice was quiet again, which was somehow worse than the shouting. Mistakes are forgetting an anniversary. Mistakes are saying something hurtful in the heat of the moment. What you did was calculated betrayal. You made a choice, Amara. Every single day you chose to lie, to cheat, to hurt me. Those weren't mistakes. That was who you really are. I can change, Amara begged. Please, Daniel. Give me another chance. I'll be better. I'll be the wife you deserve. You'll what? Love me now that you know I'm rich. Daniel shook his head. That's not love, Amara. That's opportunism. He picked up another folder from the table. These are divorce papers. Sign them. No. Amara's voice was firm despite her tears. No, I won't sign. We're married, Daniel. For better or worse. And yes, I failed you during the worse. But now things are better, and I want to make it right. I want to fight for our marriage. You don't want to fight for our marriage, Daniel said wearily. You want to fight for my money. There's a difference. Richard lunged across the table, but Daniel was faster. He sidestepped smoothly, and security guards burst through the door, grabbing Richard by the arms. Get your hands off me. Richard struggled. Do you know who I am? A fraud and a liar, Daniel said calmly. Gentlemen, please escort Mr. Mensah out. And make sure the media gets some nice photographs of him leaving. I'm sure they'll have questions. As Richard was dragged from the room, still shouting threats and curses, Amara and Daniel were left alone. The silence was deafening. Daniel, Amara whispered, her voice broken. Daniel, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. If I had known. If you'd known I was rich, you would have stayed? Daniel's laugh was bitter. Yes, Amara. I know. That's exactly the problem. No. That's not what I meant. She stood, moving toward him. I mean, I would have tried harder. I would have been more patient. I would have. You would have pretended better, Daniel finished. You would have hidden your true nature a little longer. But eventually, the mask would have slipped. Because you don't love me, Amara. You never did. You loved my money. That's not fair. Isn't it? Daniel's composure finally cracked. You poured boiling water on my face. You hit me. You moved in with another man. You told me to my face that you married me for money, that our marriage was a transaction. How is any of this unfair? Amara sobbed, collapsing back into her chair. I was angry. I was scared. We went from having everything to having nothing, and I didn't know how to handle it. I made mistakes. Mistakes. Daniel's voice was quiet again, which was somehow worse than the shouting. Mistakes are forgetting an anniversary. Mistakes are saying something hurtful in the heat of the moment. What you did was calculated betrayal. You made a choice, Amara. Every single day you chose to lie, to cheat, to hurt me. Those weren't mistakes. That was who you really are. I can change, Amara begged. Please, Daniel. Give me another chance. I'll be better. I'll be the wife you deserve. You'll what? Love me now that you know I'm rich. Daniel shook his head. That's not love, Amara. That's opportunism. He picked up another folder from the table. These are divorce papers. Sign them. No. Amara's voice was firm despite her tears. No, I won't sign. We're married, Daniel. For better or worse. And yes, I failed you during the worse. But now things are better, and I want to make it right. I want to fight for our marriage. You don't want to fight for our marriage, Daniel said wearily. You want to fight for my money. There's a difference. That's not true. Then answer me this. Daniel leaned forward, his eyes boring into hers. If I told you right now that I was giving away every naira to charity, that I was going back to that apartment in Yoba to live a simple life, would you come with me? The question hung in the air. Amara opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. The silence was answer enough. That's what I thought. Daniel pushed the divorce papers across the table. Sign them, Amara. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. And if I refuse? Then we do this the hard way. I file anyway, citing adultery and domestic violence. Every photograph, every recording, every piece of evidence becomes public record. Your face will be on every news station, every blog, every social media platform. The woman who left a billionaire for a fraud. Is that really the legacy you want? Amara's hands trembled as she picked up the papers. Page after page of legal language that essentially said, you get nothing. No alimony. No settlement. Nothing but your personal belongings and the clothes on your back. This isn't right, she whispered. I'm your wife. I'm entitled to something. You're entitled to exactly what you gave me, Daniel said coldly. Nothing. You gave me nothing but pain and betrayal. So that's what you'll receive in return. I gave you 3 years of my life. You gave me 3 years of lies. Daniel moved to the door. Sign the papers, Amara. My lawyer will contact you next week to finalize everything. You have until then to find somewhere to live. I assume Richard's penthouse is no longer an option. Daniel, wait. Amara stood, desperation making her voice shrill. What about us? What about everything we built together? Daniel paused at the door, his hand on the handle. When he spoke, his voice was soft but final. We didn't build anything together, Amara. I built a life, and you lived in it. There's a difference. He glanced back at her one last time. Goodbye, Amara. I hope someday you learn the difference between loving someone and loving what they can give you. Then he was gone. Amara stood alone in the conference room, designer dress, diamond bracelet, expensive makeup running down her face. Through the window, she could see the gala continuing below, hundreds of people celebrating Daniel's success, his future, his life. A life she'd thrown away. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother, I'm watching the news. Amara, what have you done? Then another from her sister. Are you insane? You left Daniel Okonkwo. Then another. And another. Friends, relatives, people she hadn't heard from in years. Everyone had seen the announcement. Everyone knew what she'd done. The shame was crushing. Amara looked down at the divorce papers in her shaking hands. At the signature line at the bottom. She thought about fighting. About refusing to sign. About making Daniel go through a long, painful legal battle. But what was the point? She'd already lost everything that mattered. With trembling fingers, Amara picked up the pen and signed her name. Outside in the hallway, Daniel leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. His hands were shaking. His heart was racing. It was done. After a year of pain, of planning, of carefully orchestrated revenge, it was finally done. So why did he feel so empty? Son. His father appeared beside him, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. Are you all right? I don't know, Daniel admitted. I thought I'd feel satisfied, vindicated, something. But I just feel tired. Justice doesn't always feel good, Chief Benjamin said quietly. But it's still necessary. What she did to you, that can't go unpunished. I know. I just... Daniel opened his eyes. I loved her, Father. For 3 years, I really loved her. And it was all based on a lie. No. Chief Benjamin turned his son to face him. Your love was real. Her love was the lie. Don't let her betrayal make you doubt your own capacity for genuine emotion. You loved honestly. She loved conditionally. The fault is hers, not yours. Daniel nodded slowly. What happens now? Now you move forward. You run this company. You build your real life. Not the test, not the game, but your actual future. And eventually, you'll find someone who loves you for who you are, not what you have. And Amara? Chief Benjamin's expression hardened. Amara will face the consequences of her choices. As will Mr. Mensah. The world has a way of teaching people very hard lessons when they need them. Back in the conference room, Amara sat alone with her signed divorce papers and her shattered dreams, learning that lesson one devastating moment at a time. Justice has been served. But is this the end of Amara's story? What consequences will she face now? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like, subscribe, and share. 3 months later, Amara sat in her mother's cramped 2-bedroom apartment in Surulere, staring at her phone screen with hollow eyes. The video had gone viral. Again. Someone had leaked footage from the gala, Daniel's speech, the moment the cameras caught Amara's face when she realized the truth, her being escorted out with Richard. It had been viewed over 5 million times. The comments were ruthless. She really thought she could do better than a billionaire. The audacity. This is what happens when you're greedy. She had everything and threw it away. I hope every woman learns from this. Loyalty matters more than temporary struggles. Imagine being married to Daniel Okonkwo and not knowing it. How self-absorbed do you have to be? Amara closed the app, but it didn't matter. The damage was everywhere. Her face had become a cautionary tale, a meme, a symbol of greed and betrayal across Nigerian social media. She'd lost everything. Richard had been arrested 2 weeks after the gala. Tax fraud, embezzlement, multiple counts of obtaining money under false pretenses. He was currently in prison awaiting trial, his bail set impossibly high. His wife had taken everything, just as Daniel predicted. The penthouse was gone. The cars were gone. Even the clothes and jewelry Richard had bought her, all purchased with stolen money, had been seized as evidence. Amara had moved back in with her mother in shame, carrying only the belongings she'd owned before her marriage. Her friends had abandoned her. Her social media accounts were flooded with hate. She couldn't go anywhere without being recognized, without hearing the whispers. That's her. That's the woman who left Daniel Okonkwo. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello, Mrs. Okonkwo. This is Jennifer Mensah, Richard's wife. Amara's blood ran cold. What do you want? I wanted you to know something. Jennifer's voice was calm, almost eerily so. When I found out about you, about the others, I was devastated. I'd given that man 15 years of my life. 2 children. I supported him when he had nothing, believed in him when no one else did. I'm sorry, Amara whispered. I didn't know he was married. He told me. He told you he was getting a divorce. I know. He told the other women the same thing. Jennifer paused. But here's the interesting part. I did some research on you, Amara. I wanted to understand what kind of woman would do this. And you know what I found. Amara said nothing. I found out you did to Daniel Okonkwo exactly what Richard did to me. You took advantage of his vulnerability. You betrayed him when he needed you most. You threw away real love for temporary excitement. Jennifer's voice hardened. So I'm not calling for an apology. I'm calling to tell you that you got exactly what you deserved. You and Richard, you're the same kind of people. Users. Takers. And now you're both paying the price. The line went dead. Amara sat in the silence of her mother's apartment, Jennifer's words echoing in her mind. You got exactly what you deserved. Meanwhile, across the city in the Okonkwo mansion, Daniel stood in his new office overlooking Lagos. 3 months as CEO, and he'd already implemented major changes. New sustainability initiatives, increased worker benefits, partnerships with local communities. The company was thriving. His parents were proud. The media loved him, the billionaire with a heart, one magazine had called him. But inside, Daniel still felt the weight of what he'd lost. Not Amara, he'd stopped mourning her weeks ago. But the dream of what marriage could have been. The innocence of believing someone loved you unconditionally. His phone buzzed. His assistant. Mr. Okonkwo, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's urgent. It's your wife. I mean your ex-wife. Daniel's jaw tightened. Tell her I'm busy. Sir, she says she'll wait. She's been here for 3 hours already. Daniel closed his eyes. He should send her away. Should never see her again. But part of him, a small, curious part, wanted to know what could possibly bring her here after everything. 5 minutes, he said finally. That's all. When Amara walked into his office, Daniel barely recognized her. Gone were the designer clothes, the expensive jewelry, the perfectly styled hair. She wore a simple dress, no makeup, her hair pulled back in a plain ponytail. She looked small. Defeated. Thank you for seeing me, she said quietly, standing awkwardly near the door. You have 5 minutes. What do you want? Amara's voice broke. I came to apologize. Really apologize. Not because I want anything from you. I know that ship has sailed. But because you deserve to hear it. Daniel leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. I'm listening. I was wrong. Tears streamed down Amara's face. About everything. I married you for the wrong reasons. I stayed with you for the wrong reasons. And when I thought those reasons were gone, I betrayed you in the worst possible way. She took a shaky breath. These past 3 months have been hell. I lost everything. My reputation, my friends, my dignity. But the worst part is realizing what I actually lost. Not the money or the lifestyle, but you. A good man who actually loved me. Who would have given me everything if I'd just been patient. If I'd just been loyal. Is that supposed to make me feel better? Daniel's voice was cold. You're sorry you got caught? Sorry you lost access to my money? No. Amara shook her head. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I was too shallow to see what I had. I'm sorry I poured boiling water on your face and walked out on you when you needed me most. She looked at the faint scars on his face, and fresh tears fell. I'm sorry I became the kind of person who could do that to another human being. Daniel studied her for a long moment. Why are you really here, Amara? Because I wanted you to know that you were right. About everything. I didn't love you. I loved what you could give me. And I'm so ashamed of that. She wiped her eyes. I also wanted you to know that I signed up for therapy. I'm trying to figure out why I'm this way. Why I valued money over people, status over character. I don't want to be this person anymore. That's good, Daniel said neutrally. I hope it helps you. I also wanted to tell you. Amara's voice dropped to barely a whisper. I wanted to tell you that if I could go back, if I could do it all over again, I would choose differently. I would stand by you. I would be the wife you deserved. Not because of money, but because you're a good man who deserved better than what I gave you. But you can't go back, Daniel said quietly. None of us can. We can only move forward. I know. Amara nodded, accepting the finality in his voice. I needed you to know that I finally understand what I lost. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The silence stretched between them. 3 years of marriage, 1 year of testing, 3 months of aftermath, all condensed into this moment. I forgive you, Daniel said finally. Amara's head snapped up, shock written across her face. Not because you deserve it, Daniel continued, but because I deserve peace. I deserve to move on without carrying this anger. So yes, Amara, I forgive you. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean I trust you. It just means I'm choosing to let go of the bitterness so I can build my future without dragging the past behind me. Fresh tears poured down Amara's cheeks. Thank you. That's more than I deserved. Yes, Daniel agreed simply. It is. Amara turned to leave, then paused at the door. For what it's worth, Daniel, I hope you find someone who loves you the way you deserve to be loved. Someone who sees your value regardless of your bank account. You deserve that kind of happiness. I know I do, Daniel said. Goodbye, Amara. Goodbye, Daniel. The door closed softly behind her. Daniel sat alone in his office, staring out at the Lagos skyline. He felt lighter somehow. Not happy exactly, but free. Free from the anger, the betrayal, the need for revenge. His phone buzzed. His mother. Daniel, darling, your father and I are hosting a small dinner party this weekend. There's someone we'd like you to meet. My friend's daughter. She's a doctor, just moved back from London. Very down to earth. Family-oriented. No pressure, but we thought you two might get along. Daniel smiled despite himself. Mama, I'm not ready for. I know. Just dinner. As friends. She's lovely, Daniel. And she has no idea who the Okonkwo's are. She's been out of the country for years. It'll be refreshing for you to meet someone with no preconceptions. Daniel thought about it. A fresh start. Someone who didn't know about the test, about Amara, about any of it. Okay, Mama. Just dinner. Wonderful. I'll send you the details. Oh, Daniel, I'm so proud of you. Not for the business success, but for how you've handled all of this with dignity. Your father and I raised a good man." After hanging up, Daniel returned to the window. Somewhere out there, Amara was probably on a bus back to Suralire, back to her mother's cramped apartment, back to the life she tried so desperately to escape. He didn't feel satisfaction at her downfall. Just a quiet acknowledgement that justice had been served. His desk phone buzzed. His assistant again. "Mr. Okonkwo, the press is asking for a statement about the viral video. What should I tell them?" Daniel thought for a moment. "Tell them I have no comment on my personal life. Tell them the Okonkwo Group is focused on the future, not the past. And tell them I'm excited about the initiatives we're launching next quarter to support young entrepreneurs across Nigeria." "Perfect, sir. And sir, if I may say so, you're handling this with remarkable grace." "Thank you, Lisa. But grace is easy when you know your worth. It took me a while to learn that lesson, but I'm glad I finally did." As the sun set over Lagos, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Daniel made a decision. He would take his mother up on that dinner invitation. He would meet new people. He would open his heart again, cautiously, carefully, but genuinely. Because Amara had taught him what love wasn't. Now it was time to discover what love could be. 6 months later, epilogue. Amara stood behind the counter of her mother's small hair salon, sweeping up hair from the latest customer. It wasn't glamorous work. It didn't pay much. But it was honest. Her phone buzzed with a notification. Against her better judgment, she checked it. A social media post from a celebrity gossip page. Daniel Okonkwo photographed with mystery woman at charity gala. The couple looked very cozy, according to sources. The photo showed Daniel in a tuxedo, laughing genuinely at something the woman beside him was saying. She was beautiful, natural beauty, not the high-maintenance glamour Amara had always pursued. She wore a simple but elegant dress. And the way Daniel looked at her. Amara had never seen him look at her that way. With love. Real love. She closed the app and returned to sweeping. "Amara, can you help this next customer?" Her mother called. "Yes, Mama." As she worked, Amara thought about the woman in the photo. She hoped Daniel was happy. She hoped this woman appreciated what she had. She hoped this woman would never make the mistakes Amara had made. Because some lessons, once learned, could never be unlearned. And some prices, once paid, could never be refunded. That night, Amara wrote in the journal her therapist had given her. "Today I saw Daniel with someone new. It hurt. Not because I want him back. I know that door is closed forever. But because I realized that could have been me. I could have been the woman he looks at with that kind of love. I could have been his partner, his equal, his genuine companion. Instead, I chose money over character. Status over substance. Temporary pleasure over lasting love. I can't change the past. But I can learn from it. I can become the kind of person who values the right things. Who treats people with dignity regardless of their bank account. Who understands that real wealth isn't measured in naira but in integrity, loyalty, and love. It's too late for Daniel and me. But maybe, someday, I can be the kind of person who deserves a second chance. Not with him, but with life. With myself. That's my goal now. Not to get back what I lost, but to become someone who would never throw it away in the first place." She closed the journal and looked at her reflection in the mirror. The expensive clothes were gone. The jewelry was gone. The pretense was gone. All that remained was Amara. Just Amara. And for the first time in years, she was okay with that. Because she was finally learning the most important lesson of all. You can't build a real life on fake love. And you can't find genuine happiness by chasing someone else's definition of success. Real wealth, she now understood, wasn't in the bank account. It was in the character. In the loyalty. In the love you gave and received honestly. Daniel had always had that wealth. She'd just been too blind to see it.